Hey yo, I am the star in any room that I stand in. I am the standout, you just my stand-in. These bitches copy my homework, that's what they hand in. That's why I'm private like the airports I land in. Life is a beach house, don't let the sand in. I ball in any arena, go let the fans in.
What's up, y'all? I hope all is well. So in this video, I wanted to just give some quick tips on some ways that light-skinned and mixed Black women can protect our mental health on social media through all of these smear campaigns and just a lot of the anti-mixed and light-skinned propaganda. And honestly, all Black women of all backgrounds can use these tips as well. This is not something that's just exclusive to light-skinned women, but that's who I will be centering this video around. But I really feel like these tips can impact women of color of all skin tones and races. So I would encourage you to still sit back and listen if you are not a part of that demographic. So let's get into it. So as mixed and light-skinned Black women, we face unique forms of invalidation and hostility online, which can lead to really taking a toll on our self-assurance and self-perception, and for some it can even possibly impact your confidence and self-esteem, even though I would hope it does not, but totally understand if it does. So I just wanted to discuss some ways to protect your mental health and to stay grounded with this inundation of this rhetoric online. So I have taken some steps in muting certain words or blocking certain creators that's rhetoric I don't want to consume. And I actually have taken steps to not consume content that I don't want on my timeline or that I find triggering to me. So, you'll often hear people online say, oh, well, just don't engage with the content or just block it or just ignore it or whatever. And I actually have taken that advice and tried to do stuff to separate myself from this content. But as long as you follow Black spaces or Black women centered content, inevitably this will show up because it's just the nature of the conversation right now. So I just want to make that clear that this video is intended for people who have already taken those very obvious steps and you're just looking for some deeper offline ways to protect your mental health as well. But I also just wanted to point out how difficult it is to avoid this type of content because it's extremely pervasive. So I went out of my way on multiple platforms that I have to not receive this type of content, and I still get it on my platforms, on my page. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I do the typical, not clicking on certain videos, not watching stuff in the morning, not letting something ruin my mood. All of that stuff is obvious. But these are some deeper tips. So the first one is that you can curate your digital space. So as I already stated, you can block, mute, or unfollow accounts that consistently push anti-light skin and mixed propaganda or unhealthy color centered narratives that you just don't want to see. I would also recommend following creators and communities that celebrate the nuances of Blackness and mixedness in places where you just feel comfortable and don't feel like you have to change anything or downplay who you are or not mention certain stuff or or being forced to acknowledge stuff that you don't want to, you know what I mean? Just basically finding your peoples, essentially. and I want to make that very clear because I'm not saying, oh, never go into Black spaces, you just don't consume any Black content online, because not every space is pushing this rhetoric. A lot are, but not everyone is. So you kind of just gotta find your vibe. But I would also say practice digital boundaries. So essentially just limit time in comment sections and on apps where you notice there's a prevalence of this rhetoric. So for example, I probably spend maybe 5 hours weekly on TikTok, if even that. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok just because also it never really grew on me. I like it. I like that they have a lot of cool feminist content on there and you see a lot of cool stuff on there, but the format of it's not very I don't feel like it's very intimate. So I prefer Instagram, me personally, because I like, seeing what like my friends are doing, people I went to school with, stuff like that, people in other states, friends in other countries and things. I'd rather be able to keep up with people's lives instead of seeing a whole bunch of random videos. But there's a time and a place for TikTok. But also the rhetoric on TikTok too, that's also something I don't really vibe with. And I really noticed this when, way back in the day when X was Twitter. I tried to be on there to kind of be on divested TikTok a little bit, but the anti-mixed and light skin rhetoric on there was so bad. I don't know how it is now that the white supremacists have taken over, but I don't, I just, I never had a Twitter account more than maybe a month or two, just because it was just so much nonsense on there. But the anti-mixed and light skin rhetoric was a huge thing that turned me off from Twitter specifically. And I was very cognizant of how, when I was on there, how it made me feel, how it affected my moods, what got a reaction out of me. Just paying attention to all of that stuff in all capacities is very important. And then when it comes to the comment section thing, that's kind of obvious. You can kind of apply the same advice to that as well. And I'm not saying, oh, don't ever look at comments or never, interest yourself to get a kiki about what people are saying in the comment section. But for example, if you know that this is a video where they're going to be dragging a light skin or mixed girl in the comment section, or they put that video up to humiliate her, just keep scrolling. Don't even waste your time trying to see what they're saying, even if you already know and you just want to get further confirmation of what you already know, because sometimes I be doing that. And think, well, maybe I'm the crazy light skin in the situation. Then you check the comment section, you're like, nah, I'm still not. But yeah, like, don't even put yourself through that mental stress and get yourself worked up by reading the comment sections, because a lot of the times it be bots anyway. Like, I don't even follow the shade room, I don't follow any of those gossip blogs, and I damn sure don't check their comment sections for this exact reason. It's just always some ignorance, always something that's going to trigger me and I'm going to want to clap back. So that's a dynamic of it. And then I would also say schedule offline hours for rest, hobbies, and real life connection. Make sure you're putting aside time to hang out with your friends, family, take an exercise class, go grocery shopping, maybe listen to a book, go to the park, do some gardening, if you catch my drift. You could do the typical gardening, and then you could do the other gardening right afterward in the garden, feel me? But yeah, like, do whatever type of self-care, hair care, spa day, booking a nail appointment, whatever you do to just unwind. That's a phone free activity where you're not going to be tempted to look at social media specifically. I mean, if you're like listening to YouTube or a book or something, that's different, but social media platforms where you're engaging with other people's ideas and content, that can be a huge energy drainer and very emotionally exhausting. So I would even say, like, limit maybe specifically social media, and just maybe only get on Pinterest or only get on Tumblr between certain times, and say, okay, I'm only going to get on certain social media platforms between 2:00 and 4, and then after that I'm done with social media. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if as a society we implemented more of these boundaries with social media, we'd all be a lot happier. And not all social media or cell phone apps are problematic. Like I said, I love Tumblr, I love Pinterest. I always feel at peace and uplifted and just calm when I'm on those apps. Meanwhile, you get on TikTok and Instagram and you got your heart rate going, your blood pressure's up, you hot and bothered. You know what I mean? You scratching your hair. You know what I mean? It just be annoying. All of a sudden you all itchy from all the dust and ignorance in the shade room comments. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, just schedule time to compress from social media. And I know, especially as young people, people like under 35, this can be really hard for us because our relaxing time is being on social media. But it's almost like your immune system can't fully relax ever if you're always on social media and always at the behest of a timeline or an algorithm to where you might see something triggering at any moment. Like it might be a cute cat video and then just boom, some anti-light skin rhetoric, and now you're triggered. Like, when you just saw the cute cat video.
I would also appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are not already and the content resonates with you. Welcome, as well as making sure you hit the bell for notifications so you'll be informed every time I upload a new video or go live. I'd also encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can access old and exclusive content, as well as having early access to new uploads. That will be linked in the description box below.
I would also say to affirm your identity and seek safe communities. So I kind of already kind of touched on this, but I kind of connect this to, like, I follow a lot of different pages that are like, oh, Caribbean culture page, or growing up black page, or different Spanish speaking meme pages and stuff like that post funny relatable stuff, like different cultural pages, or just even stuff that post about like Afro-Latin history and black diasporic history. Like I follow a lot of stuff like that, or a lot of like different like artistic pages and hair pages and things like that. Like finding community that it is kind of a non-controversial space where you can engage in culture and just enjoy the culture without outside opinions. I feel like that's really important, and that's one thing social media is good for. You can find a lot of cultural spaces where you can still feel affirmed and validated and accepted and all that good stuff without having to hear people's perspectives or people arguing about who's really a part of the culture, who's really this, who's really that. And you don't ever have to look in the comment section, and if you do, it's just people dropping flags or hard eyes or positive comments. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of positive cultural spaces on social media. Not every place is hostile, like certain TikTok spaces and YouTube channels and stuff. And there are even a lot of mixed spaces, here on YouTube, on Instagram. I'm in support of all of them. Shout out to everybody. Like, there are a lot of people here who are doing that as well, talking about the same topics as me. There are people not so much on TikTok and Instagram, but there are a few people there that do have like pro mix pages and stuff like that. So even if you're into this type of content, there are spaces for that as well. But you can also have singular culture spaces. There are a lot of West Indian pride pages, a lot of African American pride pages, African American culture meme pages and stuff like that, or that post throwbacks and celebrities and all types of things that just make you still feel proud of who you are, where you don't have to deal with the controversy and the social discourse around identity and race and all that exhausting stuff. So that's also important to me. There's ways to be proud and engage with your culture and your community without having to hear other people's perspectives on you, or just random takes and things like that. But last but not least, I would also say one tip that you can implement in your life is prioritizing mental health care. So these are like typical things you hear everywhere. Like, obviously I'm not the first person to say any of this stuff, but like journaling, hiring a therapist, a counselor, especially one that's like well versed in cultural experiences, maybe somebody that's from the same background as you, maybe somebody that's also black, or you don't have to get somebody that has the exact same background as you, but just somebody who is cognizant of the experiences that people of color, especially people of African descent, may deal with here. And it's even harder finding somebody who understands the nuances of like Afro mixed experiences, but you really never know with people. A lot of people have different specialties and different things. So yeah, or you can even find like therapy groups or like travel groups where you can meet like-minded women, and maybe like knitting clubs, or a lot of book clubs, different interests and crafting clubs on Facebook and on social media. Some of them meet in person, some of them meet online, but I think all of that's connected to mental health, and also just like your own self-care things, kind of like I talked about earlier. Me personally, I don't really journal that much, I'm just gonna be honest with you, but my self-care, I like to like put on music, and honestly I like to like do my nails, I like to do my eyebrows. I actually like cleaning up at self-care. People say that that's not self-care, but I think that it is. It's a good way for me to just be alone with my thoughts, do a little gardening, if you catch my drift. I garden a little first, and I just clean up my house, feel me? Like, my room be smelling like straight herb and fabuloso. Like, it's honestly wonderful. But yeah, so like, and of course you have to clean anyway, but I like cleaning, so that's just me. But yeah, so just different things that you can do to just kind of like decompress. And yeah, and also finding a professional counselor and a professional therapist, having friends and family that you can talk to and confide in, that's important. But not everybody has that space, or even wants to do that or talk about these topics with the people around them. And I do think it really is beneficial to people of African descent to seek professional help. That doesn't mean you're crazy, that doesn't mean you're mentally ill, that doesn't mean that there's any flaw within you. It's natural to have a therapist. White people religiously go to therapy. They have been on the therapy tip for a very long time. We're just late to the party. And that's not our fault. Some of it is an access issue as well, but depending on what state you live in, especially if you live in the East Coast, or even in California, a lot of places in the West Coast, there's a lot of resources to where you can at least get temporary mental health services. I wouldn't recommend any of those apps, just as somebody who's worked in, healthcare as well. I wouldn't recommend them, but there's ways to access counseling for affordable prices in a lot of places. So that's very, very important. Let me think. And last but not least, I would just say to just keep in mind that social media is not real life. And I don't mean that in a gaslighting type of way, like, oh, these are just bots or these are not real people. Like, this has been going on for a very long time, long before the internet, long before TikTok existed or anything. This is just an issue that's just completely snowballed out of hand. But it is important to remember that algorithms amplify controversy and extreme ideologies. So the most loudest, confrontational, shock jockey type of people are the ones that are going to get the most attention, just based off of how the social media algorithm operates to generate income, because it is a capitalist system, so it's inherently exploitative anyway. You can't expect it to protect your mental health because it's there to generate attention that translates into money. It's not there to protect your mental health. So they don't really care that they're pushing anti-light skin propaganda, because that's what's making money on their algorithm. So they're just going to keep pushing it out. And so that's kind of why, even though I get irritated with having to respond to some of their childish shit sometimes, somebody got to do it, because if this hate and propaganda is being rewarded in the algorithm and you're just sitting back not pushing back on it and agreeing with it and even promoting it yourself, that's not beneficial to anybody's mental health. And this is also why I have an issue with a lot of the light skin apologists, because they're pushing rhetoric that's not helpful for themselves or other light skinned and mixed people or the next generation. And then when their personal mental health is affected, then they're gonna be, trying to seek resources. But you didn't care about the mental health of other mixed and light skinned people when you was out there pushing propaganda so you could look better. And it still didn't benefit your ass in the end. So that's what I have an issue with, because it's like, okay, I can sit up here and pop shit to dark skinned black women all day, or complain about other people talking about mixed and light skinned people all day. Who really cares? If your own group is sitting there pushing the propaganda on its own self, who are you to sit up here and talk and complain about other people? It's like, I don't even have time to address what other black women are saying, because it's mainly, I'm not gonna say it's mainly, but it's a good number of light-skinned and mixed people promoting this shit on their own. So I'm not gonna sit up here wasting time addressing all these other groups when you sitting up in here aiding in your own negative stereotypes. Like, this shit makes no sense. And I really do think that, unfortunately, a lot of these light-skinned apologists, they have a racial pick-me mentality, to where they think that if they throw other mixed and light-skinned people under the bus, that it'll be a benefit to them, when you're just one individual person. If you're putting out a negative collective message about an entire group of people and you think that's not going to translate badly to you, everybody don't know you. Everybody don't know you know that you're the chosen light-skinned person who's not like the other light skins. So you can't be mad if you put out propaganda against other light-skinned people and then it comes back to bite you in the butt. It's just naturally what's going to happen. So unfortunately, more people are going to have to suffer before other light-skinned and mixed people become uncomfortable with this dynamic. But in the meantime, we can't worry about them. We can just try to break the conditioning and shake them out of the brainwashing. You know what I mean? All we can do is like digitally waterboard them before they get the point. But yeah, in the meantime, if you see what it is and you see the situation for what it is, I hope you're able to use some of these tips in your life, and I hope that this has been somewhat helpful. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. I don't tend to try to not give advice, but that's just not really my personality to make videos like this. But it's something I did want to talk about for a while, because it's something that I've even had to analyze myself. And as a content creator, consuming this negativity constantly, it can be very exhausting. So these are actually tips that I personally have used and I have implemented in my life, and I'm saying that they do work. I'm in therapy. My therapist is a Latino man, so he's mixed too. So we're able to talk about some stuff, you know what I mean? And he's gay too, so he understands the intersexual identity. He's not narcissistic straight man. But yeah, so and like I said, I've done the work to clean up my algorithm. I try to do the little self-care stuff when I have the chance as well, but I do need to get better about that, just because I'm going back to school, working, the channel, everything like that. So yeah, anyway, thanks for the support as always. Hopefully you guys are able to use some of these tips. Thanks for the support. Bye bye.